Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ali McIntosh. This is the Servant Leader Speaks for August the 2nd, our first program for the month of August. And today we have a visionary guest in the office, and we're going to be talking with Cornelius McKinney, the BCP Deputy Servant Leader. He is a man with plenty vision, plenty new perspective, to be able to show the Bahamian people a new way to walk. It's not just about the party politics we've always heard, but it is about being a nationalist, about developing the country, about going to the next level to empower the Bahamian people. Well, we are going to have a word of prayer, and then we're going to get right into this discussion and talk with our guest, Cornelius McKinney, after the prayer on this Friday. Rainy day, soup day. Apparently, a lot of people are looking for soup or boil something. But we are going to have a visionary discussion and go to the next level in our talk in this country. Let's have a word of prayer on this Friday, and then we will begin our conversations. Father, we thank you for this discussion today. May the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable unto you, who are our strength and our Redeemer, and for the empowerment and the blessing of the Bahamian people. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, we're back, and thank you so much for joining us. EJ is here from Toronto, Canada, and I'm now bringing in my guest who is joining me, Cornelius McKinney. Cornelius, come a little closer as we get into the discussion and the conversation. Could you come a little closer?
Okay.
Yes, the conversation today about the Bahamian people and the empowerment of the Bahamian people. So how are you today?
Doing awesome. It's good to be here in Nassau. Good to be on your show.
That's good.
There is a lot going on in the nation, and there's a lot more that can be going on. And hopefully in the time we have, we'll get to some of that. I'm going to have to rush because I have to head to the airport from here.
Yes,
but I'm glad to take this time to talk to our people about where we are and what's really important to the Bahamian people, and how can we achieve those things that are dear to us, those things that we have need of.
Yes, as I indicated, Cornelius is a visionary, a constitutionalist, I call him, even though he's not an attorney. Like myself, we believe in the Constitution. We believe in vision, economic development for the nation. He is the BCP Deputy Servant Leader incoming on the 29th of September. We're going to have the official installation of the BCP Board of Directors and Officers for the ensuing years. But I call you a visionary because I know there is a lot of things about how you see the Bahamas, how you see things in the nation and what we can do. But probably first, let's tell us, who is Cornelius McKinney?
Well, I'm Cornelius McKinney. I have a banking background. I have a degree in banking. I spent over 20 years in banking. And again, it's just an educational system. It's just one of the many systems that run the nation. We have a financial system, educational, political, just a bunch of systems. And I came out of that banking system, but it really didn't help me much in terms of nation building. And so I went on a quest on my own to study economic development. Why are some countries poor and why are some countries wealthy? And I took a look at that and comparing the Bahamas to other nations. And one of the biggest things when it comes to wealth is you realize it is not about natural resources. It really boils down to government. It boils down to leadership. Every country that is poor, there's corruption. Without exception, do the research. The more corrupt a nation is, the poorer that nation becomes, because the resources are bottlenecked. The powers that be don't allow the masses to have access to it, just a few wealthy persons. And we see that happening in the Bahamas. And so every year Bahamians are becoming poorer. And there's a deliberate effort on the part of not the government, but corrupt leadership.
So you believe there is a failure of leadership?
There's a failure of leadership, right. When it comes to the government, the problem in the Bahamas is not the government. The problem is not the PLP. The problem is not the FNM. The problem is corruption.
Okay.
That is the problem with what the Bahamas is facing right now. and you have corruption in government, corruption in the PLP, corruption in the FNM. The government is good because the government is the people. The PLP is the people, the FNM is the people, so nothing's wrong with the PLP, nothing's wrong with the FNM, nothing is wrong with the government, nothing is wrong with the Bahamas. The problem is corruption and those who partake in corruption.
Well, I mean, people might differ with you on that, but that is a technical explanation because it is people who actually become corrupt.
People.
And they become corrupt, they fail in what it is they promised they will do.
Right.
And so when that happens, of course, we now see corruption. As you say, it is the people. And people generally lose faith more in people than they do in the system of governance. So I understand the concept in which you speak.
Even when you look at the government increasing VAT, the reason the government has to increase VAT is because of corruption. Those persons who are corrupt, who give out government contracts to government cronies, and then they overbid in contracts, and people get contracts who have higher bids than legitimate companies, and so the government is overpaying on contracts, and so now the government has to get that money back. Every time the government borrows $1, they have to pay $2 back. And so where are they going to get the $2 from?
When money is being pilfered.
Right, and the money is going to come back. The government is going to go to you, the average poor person. And I hear people say, oh, well, this party looks out for the poor. This party looks out for the poor. That is not so. Because the poor suffers most. The poor get hurt more by an increase in VAT. The poor, we could have done without VAT. And the country still could have made it. If you take the corruption out of government, there'll be hundreds of millions of dollars that stays in the treasury that can be used for other things.
Wow. So the cost of corruption, and this Prime Minister, when he indicated that the Bahamas has the cost to the Bahamas is over 200 million because of corruption. But I think they've kind of increased that by having this problem.
He is a part of that.
Oh my God! So,
he's telling you the end statistics, but he's not telling you that he contributed to that.
Well, you know, when we look at those things, because successive government has actually contributed to not only corruption, but the state of the Bahamas. Now, you talked about that before in terms of what successive governments has done, in terms of what the expectation now of Bahamian voters is.
Right, because if you look at the last election, and you look at the PLP only winning 4 seats, they were the government. And so if you argue that the PLP was doing a great job, why is it that they only would have won 4 seats if they did a great job for 5 years?
Okay.
Either something is wrong with the PLP leadership, or something is wrong with the Bahamian people. If you as a people have a government that's doing a great job, and then you just fire them and only give them 4 seats, I have to question the Bahamian people. Either the problem is the Bahamian people, or the problem is the leadership in the PLP. And then you have the FNM come into power. They basically walked into it because the PLP was just really out of whack with the people. They were just doing things that the Bahamian people were not very happy with, and the people just wanted to get rid of them. Basically, the FNM really didn't even have to campaign. They could have just walked in and pick up the seats.
People were just that tired of the PLP.
People were that tired. And now you have the FNM coming in less than 3 years. They're doing worse than the PLP were doing.
Oh my God. So what do you think we have buyer's remorse?
Right, so they do. And so the people are already fed up in the way that the administration of this government operates, that they're even considering going back to the people who they just fired 3 years ago.
Oh my God.
And that's ridiculous. And so the people are looking for something new, something different, something that they can have some hope in. And that is where the Bahamas Constitution Party stands out. Because the Bahamas Constitution Party actually has plans. It has addressed every major ill, every major problem in the nation, and it has a solution. The Bahamas Constitution Party has a plan to create 100% employment in the Bahamas.
And you think that is possible?
That is the plan. It's written. Anybody can take a look at the plan and analyze it themselves. I gave it to high school students, and they're like, this thing can work. Why isn't the government doing this?
Well, I think, Cornelius, and that's why I love you so, is your perspective is new. Thank you, Marvy Moore and Patrick Taylor, for joining us on the conversation. But I love your perspective on how you see things. You're a man of faith. You're a farmer also. You've shown by some of the things you've done that we can move the country to another level.
Yeah, I'm an investor.
You're an investor.
So I'm not a farmer per se, but I'll invest in farming. I'll
Well,
invest in
I
manufacturing.
know you've grafted some grapes, so we can grow grapes in the
We
Bahamas.
can grow grapes.
That's the one we buy out of the food store.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. I've taken the seeds from grapes in the food store, apples, and grown them. We're producing grapes that are very sweet, large grapes, just like the ones you grow in the supermarket.
In Grand Bahama.
Yes.
Just so people can understand, I mean, if we can grow grapes, and somebody told me that before, that we can grow grapes, strawberries, kiwis in Grand Bahama, the weather is conducive for that. Besides, we can use greenhouses too, right?
Yes, we
and
can.
help to be able to stimulate the Grand Bahama economy just by those vegetables that we're talking about.
And I'm glad you brought it up because I want to ask your viewers this question. If you walk into any supermarket in the Bahamas and take a look through the aisles, how many of those products are made in the Bahamas?
Wow.
Just ask yourself that. Walk through any shelf, go through aisle after aisle after aisle, go in the drug section, go in the produce section, go in the cereal section, go in the meat section. How many of those products are made in the Bahamas? And you have to ask yourself, why aren't at least half of these products made in the Bahamas? And we can make them, so why are we not?
Well, you tell me, we were talking earlier off camera about why and how that we don't have the increase of local industry. Why is that? Based on well, I won't go ahead of myself, but why is that?
I'm going to give you the cold, hard truth, and you could go research it, you could check into it. You can accept it or not. The reason why Bahamas are not producing more, the reason why we're not exporting anymore, the reason why our imports continue to increase, why our imports went up $500 million last year, the reason is because the former UBP, that used to be the government, the leadership of the UBP runs the leadership of the FNM and the leadership of the PLP.
Now.
Right now.
Wow, okay.
And let me tell you why our imports are increasing. We call them the Bay Street Boys for the most part. For the most part, they've controlled the masses of the wealth in the nation. They own the container port. So let's say you buy a bag of onions from Walmart and you're going to ship it by boat to Nassau. The UBP leadership or the Bay Street Boys own the container port, so they're going to make some money at the container port for that your goods coming in. They own the ship, so they're going to make money on the shipping. They own the wholesale stores, so they're going to make money on the wholesale store. Then they own the major supermarkets, so they're going to make money from the supermarket. So if you buy a bag of onions at Walmart and ship it to Nassau by boat, the Bay Street Boys are going to make money 4 times on that bag of onions. So you can see why the price escalates.
Yes.
We haven't even included VAT and customs.
I noticed.
So this one group of people makes money 4 times from a bag of onion. Now, if you buy that bag of onion from a local farmer who grew it on his farm, how much money does the Bay Street Boys make?
Nothing.
Zero. And so their main thing is to protect their money.
So they're not going to invest in local production.
No, not just that. They lobby the politicians who they give money to. They lobby them to create policies to run farmers out of business.
Wow.
So that we don't grow any food in the Bahamas. That's why we're growing less. So that we don't produce anything whatsoever in the Bahamas, so that we can import everything. The more we import, the more money the Bay Street Boys make. They're not just running Bay Street, they're running the entire economy of the Bahamas.
So you have some statistics on that. You were telling me about Eleuthera, you telling me about Andros,
right,
in terms of the decrease in farming.
Yeah, let me tell you something about BAMSI. BAMSI is a brilliant idea if it was used properly. But BAMSI is said to be an institute to train farmers and people in marine sciences. But the purpose of BAMSI secretly is really to run the farmers out of business.
Local farmers in Andros.
Run the local farmers in the Bahamas out of business.
Wow.
Because BAMSI is producing the same products as the local farmers, but BAMSI is selling to the public. So BAMSI is using student labor. So BAMSI can sell at a lower price then this farm, and the next farm. So now Bamsi comes in selling tomatoes at half the price of a farm. So what's going to happen to that farm? That's going to go out of business.
Soon.
Then the government comes in and creates a policy where they put a limit on how much produce they will take from each farmer. We're only going to take 40.
And that's still in place.
Yes.
I mean, that's been in place for 40 years or more.
Right. Now imagine you have a farm, you're growing onions, tomatoes, cabbage. You have 5 or 6 employees, you and your husband, the wife, and some of the kids work there. Now the government says we're only going to get $40,000 worth of goods from you. That's a cap. That's it for the year.
So you can't grow $90,000 worth of goods.
No.
If they only going to buy 40.
No. You're going to have to find a market for the other 50,000, which is quite difficult. So the packing houses have a limit. So you now automatically, if you're running 10 acres, you now have to going to cut down to about 2 acres, and you're going to have to let go like 80% of your employees. So you've automatically shrunk the size of that farm by a government policy.
So what is the BCP going to do about it? Mr. Cornelius is our man for economic development and finances, but the economic development, what does the BCP propose to do? I mean, how do we handle that business with the farmers?
Okay, I'm going to address a number of things the BCP is going to do in terms of economics for the country. First of all, we're going to create 100% employment. Everybody who wants a job, there will be a job.
Should have a job.
Yes.
It's like education. If you want to go to school, you should be able to go.
Yeah, you cannot elect a party to lead the country and you go to them for a job and they say there is no job. We cannot accept any unemployment rate.
And it doesn't have to be in the government sector.
No, it will not be, because in fact we're not looking to make government bigger. We're looking for the private sector. Our view is that we provide grants and funding to Bahamians who have business ideas, whether it be a farm, whether it be manufacturing, so that they have the tools, they have the resources, they have the funding to purchase the equipment, to purchase the land, and then they will produce. And by the more you produce in the Bahamas, the more jobs you create in the Bahamas. And then we are heavily focused on exports. Let's produce products
to export,
to go to a global market. And so we're bringing in foreign currency. We're not bringing the foreign investors. The only thing we
want to venture capitalists.
We use that, right.
Venture, yes.
Right. The current philosophy among government is bringing foreign investors. But the reality is, the only one thing we want from the foreign investors is that's their money.
So we've got the talent, we've got the resources to develop the country.
Under the BCP, we will bring in the foreign money without bringing the foreign investor.
Now that's a smart idea.
Yeah.
I believe in that 100%. Bring in the venture, the capital.
Bring in the capital.
Even if we are joint venturing with someone,
right.
But the Bahamian people have the kind of talent, the resources, to actually create the companies themselves.
Right, and if there's a new field and there's no Bahamian with experience, you still give the Bahamian company that is interested in that the license, but they could bring in foreign consultants on yearly contract. But you don't bring in a foreign company to operate it.
It's Sir Lyndon's dream, Sir Lyndon Arthur Hanna's dream of Bahamianization. The BCP will take this to the next level.
The BCP will be heavily focused on Bahamianization, not just as a philosophy, as a practical way of doing business, where 80% of the large companies in the Bahamas are Bahamian owned. I'm talking about Bahamian owning resorts for hundreds of millions of dollars. We will make that available. Bahamians manufacturing paint, joint compound, sheetrock, things that we're not making, facial products, having global name brands in the Bahamas. Let's take a look at something simple as Fiji water. Water from the island of Fiji is selling all over the world. Why would somebody buy water from Fiji when every country has water?
They obviously had a good marketing plan.
Right, and we can do, how about water from the Bahamas?
How about coconut water from the Bahamas?
Coconut water.
But you're talking about water from the Bahamas. Andros has some of the biggest network of...
Third largest reservoir in the whole region, of fresh water.
So we should be selling water.
Israel is in the desert and Israel is exporting water. So if a country that live in a desert can export water, you tell me why the Bahamas can't.
Probably we've missed something. You said earlier about leadership, failed leadership, successive leadership in the country have failed.
See, what we are following is a plan that was put in place from 1938.
Wow. And
it was further extended in 1958, right after the Burma Road riot.
Okay.
The plan to keep the average grassroots people, as they call it, keep them as grassroots, so they never rise above that level. And the way to do that is economically. You deprive the people economically, and then they cannot rise. Every now and then you take a token person and say, okay, we're gonna pull this one out of poverty, and we're gonna give them a chance. And when election comes, we're gonna say, oh, see what we did for those 10 people.
So that's part of the marketing.
Right. So not
you have
mentioning
one classic case,
right,
that you say, oh, and I see that with the small business development.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about this one person who have gained $200,000
There you go.
or 4 or 5 persons, but then you have 2,500 people on the list.
Yes.
But you're talking about the
talk
empowerment
about
of
that
10.
one person that you helped and the other 2,500 you did not help. We're going to help the 2,500. And what about the 33,000 people who applied for Crown land?
Wow, okay.
Why is there 30,000 plus people waiting on Crown land? The government's been sitting on Crown land for over 500 years. I'm talking about land that the government has not touched in 5 years, 2.74 million acres, and they refuse to make it available to the Bahamian people.
But when foreigners come, they seem to give them like 1,000
They
acres,
give them more
and
than they ask
500
for.
acres and 600 acres.
Right.
The case of Oban and Grand.
Right.
I didn't thought that there was that much land to be given away.
And look at the rate that they charge them for it. It's like pennies. Like basically they're giving, it's practically giving it away.
Why can't they give us en masse for pennies?
Right. If you just take a look at the natural resources in Andros, if you look at the...
Yes, I want to talk about Andros.
Yeah.
You just from Andros.
Yeah, I've been in Andros for the last 7 months, and it's absolutely amazing. A lot of things that I should have learned in geography or in social studies, but I just wasn't taught. I didn't see it until I go to Andros, where you have billions of tons of mud. I'm talking about pure mud that has no pebbles, no sand, nothing, and it's just pure, and it comes in from the ocean, increasing every year.
Sort of like aragonite?
It is not aragonite. I don't know exactly the type, but I know that a number of the locals said that the Cubans come to Andros and they take this mud and take it back to Cuba to make paint.
Wow.
The mud is also used to make joint compound and also used to make sheetrock. And in the 50s and 60s, the locals used to build their houses out of it. Not out of cement, not out of concrete, just this mud. Because they put it in the form, drop rocks in it, pour just the mud in it, and that hardens.
Oh, wow.
And those houses, I saw some of these houses a few months ago, and the houses are still standing right up the bell course after 70 years of hurricanes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right, and if you look at more than 1 billion tons of it, even if you sell it $1 a ton, that's $1 billion.
Yeah.
$100 a ton, that's $100 billion that we can bring into our economy.
That's a new industry right there.
That's
in
a new
Andros.
industry. And just think if the government got 30% of that revenue, that would be $30 billion the government could collect. They can wipe out the national debt in 2 or 3 years, and then they can also eliminate customs duty and eliminate VAT so that Bahamians can live duty-free and VAT-free.
So these are some of the ideas that the BCP will focus on in regards to creating employment,
Yes.
reducing the cost of living for
Yes.
Bahamians, and creating new industries.
We're going to create new industries, and the best way to create employment is to give the Bahamians what they need. Not talk, not even a loan. Give them a grant. Just give them the money once they can come up with a feasible business plan. Give them the money to start that operation. Help them through it. Give them experts that's going to help them through it so that they're creating these jobs internally. And that's just one area. We mentioned bottled water. That's a $165 billion industry.
Wow.
There are orchids. Hundreds of thousands of orchids growing wild in Andros. That's a $500 million industry. And we need to tap into these industries.
Hold a second. Well, thank you, Andrew Tynes and Brendan Aubrey, for coming on. I wanted just to stop you for a minute there before we go into orchids, because I want to be very specific. Orchids are beautiful flowers.
Yes.
That sells for what, $15 to $30?
$20 to $60.
$20 to $60 on the open market.
Yeah, retail.
And we grow that in our...
They're growing wild.
It's growing wild in Andros.
I've seen orchids.
You think that's an entire industry we can produce?
That's an industry. That's an industry. I've seen orchids in Andros bigger than any orchids I've seen anywhere else in the world.
Whoa. And they're not being tended. They're growing wild.
They're wild. They're just growing on their own.
Oh my goodness.
Just what happened with Andros is like some parts of our central Andros is like a natural greenhouse where you have a lot of holes That's why the crabs are there, because all that fresh water in all of these little holes. And what it does is put a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. And then you have these trees that are so thick that they trap the moisture in there. I'm talking about hundreds of miles of it. And so the trees trap the moisture, and because of that, the orchids flourish.
Wow.
It's like a natural greenhouse. You have to actually go there and walk around, and you'd be absolutely amazed. And I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of orchids.
Wow, so that's two industry already out of Andros. The
Yeah.
BCP will create, not just only create, we just have to facilitate.
We have to facilitate. Find the persons who are interested in those industries. We give them the funding. We help them set up their business. We help them create these jobs, and then we start exporting. And that brings in foreign revenue.
Well, you know, two things. The oligarchy would still be happy because now they would be exporting out of the country, yeah, which is very good because
But
they were bringing it in.
Before, no. We break the monopolies.
Okay.
We break the shipping monopolies because
We create some new shipping
we're going to
lines.
create the funding so that the average person or group of people who want to do shipping can do it. We're totally against monopolies. We
Okay.
break every monopoly. We level the playing field.
This is Cornelius McKinney online with me, the Bahamas Constitution Party's deputy servant leader. He is visionary. He's responsible for economic development. He has tons of ideas and plans for us, for the Bahamas Constitution Party. When you elect us to governance, we're planning to eliminate unemployment.
Yeah.
And based
Wipe
on
it out.
just the two industries in Andros alone can eliminate, you're talking about what, probably 20,000 jobs, you think? Or is it?
The natural resources in Andros alone can take care of the entire Bahamas without even touching other islands.
So you know what, another thing, the second thing is, this blows a hole in that plan of Mr. Alfred Sayers about making Andros the political capital for the Bahamas.
We already have too much politics. We
No,
don't need more politics.
I think what Andros can be is our cash cow.
It can
The
be.
development of the Bahamas through all of those industries, and we have an entire industrial island.
Yeah, in fact, I wouldn't focus so much on like larger industries because
Okay.
pollution comes with that, and then
So the smaller
environment
ones.
is issue. So smaller industries, and just have several of them, and we do it on several islands, but we don't need to grow beyond our capacity to manage. And so the
Yes,
government,
that's important. That
right?
is important.
Yeah, the government job would be one of regulator, where the government watches over the environment. The
Okay.
government puts the policies in place that yes, you can start this business, but here are our guidelines to protect the environments. No adverse effect on the environment. We want to use our natural resources, and we're not going to use all of it. We're just going to use even less than 20% of our natural resources is enough to get the country out of there. The government will have you believe that the country is poor. The Bahamas is not a poor country by no shade of the imagination.
Probably a poor leadership.
Poor leadership. The government is not broke. The government sits on 2.74 million acres of land. That in itself is worth over $300 billion. And so how could the government consider itself as broke?
Probably mismanagement. Probably lack of
It's just
vision.
lack of vision.
Lack of vision.
If you're sitting on assets, if I give you $300 billion in assets to manage, can you come and tell me that you're broke? You should be able to get a return on that. Even if you got 10% a year, that would be $30 billion. And our government can easily generate $30 billion without taxing the Bahamian people.
So why are we operating on a deficit with a national debt of $8.8 billion and like almost $300 million in deficit?
It is
Why
part,
is that?
It is part of the plan that I mentioned that the UBP put in place to keep the average Bahamian right where they are, keep average Bahamian grassroots. Every now and then somebody breaks out of it. But if the government would remove its restrictions off the Bahamian
Systemic
people,
prejudice, systemic oppression.
and it's systemic poverty that we have
Okay.
in the Bahamas, there's nothing natural about it. If the government would remove its restrictions, the Bahamian people would flourish on their own without government assistance. Let me tell you one of the restrictions. I could tell you more than 50, but we have limited time. I'm going to give you one: exchange control regulation.
Okay, that's
Let's
bringing
look
the
at that.
venture capital right there.
Yeah. What I want to talk about is when the Bahamian and US dollar is on par. You go to the shop, you could pay in Bahamian or US. But if you go to the bank to get a draft, the bank converts Bahamian into US at a rate of 1.0125. So you may get a draft for $1,000. You're going to pay $12.50. That's not the bank fees yet. That's just the conversion rate from Bahamian to US. Why are you converting Bahamian to US when it's at par? So that $12.50 on $1,000. It is at par, but that's a way that they found to keep you poorer. And let me tell you what works. So you say, okay, $1,000, I'm just paying $12.50, I could afford that. But add that up to the $3 billion in imports, and you end up with $35 million a year. That's just goods that we're importing. Now you add in the medical fees when Bahamians go to get assistance, medical assistance from hospitals in the US. When you add college tuition fees from Bahamians going abroad to college, you end up at about $45 million a year. Over 10 years, that's $450 million that Bahamians pay in conversion charges.
Wow.
Why? What is the $450 million? Why are we paying that $450 million? If you just take $450 million from the Bahamian people, doesn't that just automatically make them poorer?
And that's more taxation also, right?
It's like a form of taxation. So the question is, who gets that $450 million? Where does it go? Where is it accounted for?
And the fact that the national debt continues to climb and the deficit is going nowhere.
Right. Why would the national debt continue to increase? Especially when you started VAT, the government was making it without VAT, and they started VAT, then they increased VAT, and they've taken already $6 billion away from the Bahamian people, so Bahamian people are $6 billion poorer. And see, the average politician doesn't feel that, because the average politician is a millionaire. And if you take $1,000 from them, they're not going to feel it. But you take $1,000 from somebody making $20,000 a year, they're going to feel that.
Yes,
they're going to feel that immediately. And Bahamians are constantly cutting back everywhere. They're cutting back. Look at what they buy from the supermarket. They're buying poorer quality meats. They're buying more food in the can. So they're putting their health at risk because the government mismanagement of the funds and deliberately not allowing the Bahamians to have access to the natural resources, which is collectively owned by all the people. It's not just causing the people to be poorer, it's also causing them to have poorer health. It's causing their stress level to go up higher. And when they're walking around with stress every day, and you say one word to them, they grab a gun and start shooting because they're stressed out.
Well, probably that's the problem right now in the nation, where people are so apprehensive about everything. As you said, if the government reduces the level of stress that people have in the country, and sometimes we never equate that to the government, but if you're putting pressure on me in regards to taxes, to fees, obviously that is going to cause me to be apprehensive and very stressful.
Yes, I would tell you the government gives the Bahamian people more stress than their spouse does.
Well, listen here, we have a plan, though. The Bahamas Constitution Party has a new kind of thinking regarding governance. This young man who is coming on, Cornelius McKinney, we met 2 or 3 years ago.
We met a few months before the last general election, which was 2017.
Tell that story, I love to hear it.
Okay. I'm 55 years old. I've never voted. And the reason I never voted was when I was 15 years old, I wanted to read the Constitution. I wanted to understand what are my rights as a citizen. Why isn't the Constitution taught to me in the classroom? None of the classes in our school offered any information on the Constitution. But I wanted to know, because if it is the supreme document of the land, if it is a document where every law is based upon, if it's a document that the government operates by, the police operate by, and for it to tell me what are my rights and my responsibilities and duties, I want to know what my rights and responsibilities and duties are. So I could not find the Constitution anywhere on Grand Bahama Island. I went to Nassau.
When you were 16?
15 years old, okay. At Hawksville High School, inquired. I was told to go to government printing. I got some direction on where to go, and I went and bought it for $2. Now, for $2, you're withholding the Constitution from the people.
You should give it free, right?
You could give it for free. So I bought it, and I read it. And I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't being followed. This is a beautiful document, but it's not being followed. And I said, when I find a political party that follows the Constitution, I'm going to join that party and I'm going to vote. And up to this date, I've not voted. And I would have voted last election for the BCP, but there was no BCP candidate in my constituency.
We only had 2 candidates.
But this year, there will be. Yeah. And so at age 57, I will be voting for for the first time in my life, and I will be voting for the Bahamas Constitution Party because they follow the Constitution, and the Constitution makes provision for the wealth, the protection, the well-being of every citizen, and that is what I want.
You didn't indicate how we met in Grand Bahama.
We met. My friend Kendall was gonna interview,
and he was
Ali
a candidate
McIntosh.
where? Central?
He was a candidate in Central.
It might be Central.
Okay, all right. So he was a candidate, and he knows I'm in the movie business, so he asked me to come along with him to help set up the video. And he's interviewing this politician who's starting a new party, and he's like, "You gotta meet her. She's really visionary. She has great ideas." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not interested in meeting any politician." And he just said, "Man, you have to come." I said, I'm not coming. He said, "Well, at least help me set it up. Give me some ideas on how to do the interview." I said, "I'll come and help you set up, but I don't have nothing to say to her." And so I went along, and sure enough, he said, "Oh, this is Miss Ali McIntosh." And I looked at you.
Yeah.
Okay, you look like a humble-looking woman, but what does she know about what solution does she have for the nations? So I said, "Well, okay." I said, "You're running for political office?" Yes. I said, "Well, let me ask you a few questions." And I riddle you with my toughest questions.
Oh, yes, you did.
And you answered.
The interviews online, BCP, and Southern
Yeah.
Leaders Speaks. Yeah, I have them online.
The answers that you gave were the answers that God had shown me several months prior.
Okay.
So I knew that the answers that you were giving were the solution for the nation because God had showed them to me. Over a period of about 4 months, the Holy Spirit would wake me up in the middle of the night and just kept giving me these visions. And I wrote them down and I have it compiled in one document. And you gave the same answers that God gave. And so from that very moment, right at that meeting, I said, I am going to register. And I did.
You went registered to vote.
And I said, I'm going to vote. But unfortunately, you did not have a candidate.
We didn't have a candidate.
But make sure there's a candidate.
We are going to have 5 candidates in Grand Bahama.
Perfect.
So Grand Bahama, we're going to have 5 candidates.
I might be voting in Central Andros. So make sure a candidate is in Central Andros.
Well, we will make sure we have candidates in all 39 constituencies.
But the Bahamas Constitution Party is the only party that has workable solution, that actually have a plan to help the grassroots. Because I know a lot of people say they vote for the PLP because the PLP look out for the grassroots. But has the grassroots gotten any better? Has their condition improved? Is the grassroots quality of life any better?
Well, we look at Bainstown and Grantstown and Anglestown. I mean, there's still outside toilets. There are still dilapidated houses. So all of these areas that are grassroots, that the PLP won, well, not the last election, because they lost quite a few of them. But all of those constituencies that has always been PLP stronghold, their quality of life has not really.
And the quality of life is
improved.
so important. Like I'm right here, and I was outside. I pulled up, and you're in. This is Bainstown, and I look around, and what I'm seeing is something you'd expect to see in Haiti. Not in the Bahamas, and not in the capital of Nassau, and so close, almost walking distance to Bay Street, where the wealth of the Bahamas is.
It takes me 5 minutes to get to Government House.
Okay, you don't expect to see this in the Bahamas, and I don't see what Bahamians could feel that the quality of life of Bahamians is good. When you look at like a truck, a large truck that a company brings in to do business, and there's 85% customs duty. So if you buy a truck for $40,000 in Miami, by the time you land it in Nassau, you would have paid $85,000 for a $40,000 truck. People here buy like a Hyundai Sonata or something like that for say $40,000, and you know that sells for $27,000 in the U.S. I mean, a half-hour flight, and the price doubles. How do Bahamians just comfortably accept that?
It's all right. But we are going to, and as you say, we have a limited time today. Today is Friday. Everything is cut short on Friday. But we have a plan as to how we can possibly translate our 50-mile away neighbors in the U.S. and how when we come here, the price for anything is at least double, sometimes triple in most cases.
We have products that we could produce in the Bahamas and sell for a lower price than the U.S. does.
I would imagine.
We can do that. We can produce joint compound and paint for less than the U.S. can.
Oh wow!
So we can export to them.
So that's the way to bring down the cost of building.
Brings down the cost of living. The BCP has a plan that reduce the cost of living in the Bahamas by 30%.
30%.
30% reduction in the cost of living in the Bahamas.
This is Cornelius McKinney. I'm depending on him. The BCP and the Bahamas is depending that this visionary leadership is going to help cost a new move in the country, bring the cost of living down,
right,
and cause a better quality of life.
The plan is that the grassroots, after 3.5 years of the BCP, the grassroots is no longer the grassroots. The grassroots is now the middle class.
Wow. So we want to increase the middle class in the nation.
Yeah, you shouldn't be grassroots for your entire life. At some point you have to progress.
At some point.
You or your children, somewhere along your generation, you have to progress. And the BCP has a plan to get you from the bottom and rise you up to the top. Jump to the middle class, and then you continue to work your way up to the top.
Well, that is a wonderful plan, and over the time we are going to talk a little bit more about this, about the production of industries, that the Bahamas Constitution Party has a plan. See, number one, our primary thing is to cause there to be not only a level playing field in the nation, but that we increase the poverty, not the poverty level, but bring people out of poverty. You just said that. Increase the cost, the quality of life for every behavior.
We're going to take everybody out of poverty. Everyone.
See,
out of poverty.
Let's look at this, and I'm going to conclude with this part. The Constitution, the preamble of the Constitution says that we should not be deprived because of frustration.
Right.
Our economics, our economic life should not be deprived. We should not be enslaved. No. And all of these things are happening because of successive governments. Economic slavery, economic oppression.
The leadership
is causing that to happen.
The people at the head.
The people at the head.
Yeah.
See, it is so important that as we go to the next level, that all of the values of the Constitution or the preamble of the Constitution will come out in the programs that we present, the initiatives that we present. And the visionary leadership of Mr. McKinney, Cornelius McKinney, I'm so excited to join with what the Lord has spoken regarding the values, the core values that we use to govern in the nation. And so I'm excited about where we go. As I said, the 29th of September, we have a service of Thanksgiving and installation of the offices of the Bahamas Constitution Party. I see our chairman online, Dwayne Hyler. He is watching right now. But we do thank you for joining us today. And we believe that the next level, the Bahamas is going to go to the next level when they introduce and elect a new government, the Bahamas Constitution Party. We're going to make sure that the Bahamian people are taken care of, because these are God's people.
Yeah, and I want to say too that God has heard the cry of deliverance of the Bahamian people, and the Bahamas Constitution Party is part of that deliverance. I want to say to the FNM and the PLPs, we don't have nothing against the FNM party or the PLP party or its members, but we have something against corrupt leaders. And I'm going to encourage FNM and PLPs not to vote for the people that you know in your party that are corrupt. You could stay FNM or PLP, but do not put those same corrupt people back in power. Don't mind changing faces. They're still following the same philosophy. I'm going to ask you to vote for the Bahamas Constitution Party. Look for its members. If there's no Bahamas Constitution Party member in your constituency, vote for an independent candidate that you can trust. You cannot trust the current leadership because they're not for Bahamianization, they're for foreignization, if that is a word. You see it over and over. You see it and you keep sucking it up and you keep supporting these same people who are corrupt. You have to get rid of the corruption if you want to get rid of crime. You have to get rid of the corruption if you want to get rid of poverty, if you want to get rid of high electricity bill, increase VAT, taxes. If you want a better quality of life, you need to bring the Bahamas Constitution Party on par and bring them up to the government. Vote for the people of the Bahamas Constitution Party and you will see a better Bahamas.
But listen here, I thank you so much for joining me today. I know you have to run. We're going to have more conversations. We've got the chairman who is going to come on and talk about some ideas. We have some other visionary persons, and they will see them when they come. When we talk about what we have for solar technology, what we have for to reduce the cost of electricity and power generation in the country. All of that is part of what we will do. This new platform allows us to be able to speak and
Yeah.
get people right at their phone at their
Right.
fingertips.
What I would love is some town meetings throughout the islands of the Bahamas,
Yes.
where the people can come with their questions so that they can see that we actually have workable solutions, and they can take the solutions that we present and they can go and analyze it, take it to some experts, and see if these solutions will work. So I look forward to having
Yes.
some town meeting where we can interact direct with the people.
After the 29th of September, people are in vacation mode now.
Yeah.
After this 29th of September, we will begin to
Yeah.
put these town meetings in places on the islands where
Yeah.
people can ask their
Yes.
question,
Yeah.
and all of the details can come forward. People can know what it is we will do. But you can go online, our website, www.bcpparty.org. There are basic information about our leadership, basic information about some of the mandates. We're still working on that particularly, and for the information we will upload in regards to the programs and initiatives of the BCP. But go online, our website, all of our contacts are there, and you can get in contact with us or just plan to support the work of the BCP.
Yeah.
Your final word.
Yeah, my final word is in my profession and my business, I travel throughout the Bahamas. And what I realize is that every island in the Bahamas and even communities are unique. They're different. You cannot just get one solution and try and apply it to everywhere in the Bahamas. It won't
It's
work.
not a one.
No,
one-
you actually have to go into the communities and spend some time in the communities. And I get to do that. I go into communities for 1 week, 2 weeks, sometimes a month or two, and live there for a while I'm doing productions. And I get to meet people and talk to them, see what the needs are, see what the natural resources are on those islands. And so we need to, so we need to address each island individually. And so you create wealth and employment based on what is available on that island and what the people have an interest in doing. So you have to get away from this centralized government where everything comes from Nassau and everybody have to do what Nassau is doing. That doesn't work. Every island of the Bahamas is different because all the people are different. And we have to address every island at their level.
Well, hey, that was a closing statement, but you have introduced a whole can of worms when we talk about the National Development Plan and the fact that the National Development Plan has to go along not just with what the central government is saying, but what each island, and you said what each natural resource in each island will do to develop the island. I think that was missing with the National Development Plan. We have a new one, and we're going to build a new one based on the resources and the perspective of the Bahamas Constitution Party for the development of the nation. Again, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For joining me on The Servant Leader Speaks.
We're here to help the Bahamian people.
Yes, and I do believe that a new government, and I'm hearing on the street, people are saying we need a new government. We need new people. We need new people other than the FNM and the PLP. So we are right in the spot to let the Bahamian people know we can help.
Yeah, the FNM and PLP have been tried and have failed. And they're continuing to fail to this very day. You cannot put the FNM or PLP back in power. The Bahamas will be worse and continue to decline.
And on that note, we will end. And next week we will see you then. Our chairman should be coming on next week, and we are going to be able to go to the next level in talking about some of the issues that matters to us most. Please enjoy your weekend. Please go to church somewhere and continue to pray for the country. We have a lot of issues that needs to be fixed, and we are part of some of that solution. We are God's help for the cry of the Bahamian people. Good evening, and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.